On the Road with Kelly and Bob is brought to you by Mueller Metal Roofs and Buildings. Made in America, made to last.
Hi, we're Kelly
and Bob Phillips, and we're on the perpetual road trip of America's back roads,
where the journey is always the destination. Welcome to this episode of On the Road with Kelly and Bob, and thanks for joining us for another journey down America's back roads.
Okay, it's the most often asked question we get. Where do you find these stories? And sometimes, well, it's as simple as a walk down the street. For instance, we had come to Evanston, Illinois, on the shores of Lake Michigan, just because, well, I wanted to see it.
And there we were, walking down Chicago Avenue on a beautiful morning when a storefront caught our eye. And before we knew it, Kevin Pearson had invited us inside to take a look.
What is all of this?
These are Toby Jugs.
Toby
Jugs, T-O-B-Y.
It's an old story. Kevin Pearson came from the UK to the USA because he met an American girl. But then he saw something that really got his attention: the world's largest collection of Toby Jugs.
I ended up moving here and I met Steve. Steve was the person who founded this museum. Steve passed away about 4 years ago. He was a great man. He built this whole building just to put the museum in the basement. It shows what sort of guy he was.
Toby Jugs. They kind of look like elaborate coffee mugs or something like that. Probably best to let Kevin explain that.
They originate from England in the 1780s, and they were originally used as beer containers. You'd pour beer out of them. But they very quickly became characters, Toby characters, and all sorts of people in literature. There's lots of different stories of why they were called Toby Jugs. And supposedly they originate from this character here. This is a rather rotund man.
Toby Philpott.
Toby Philpott. And when he died, there was a song written about him. His soul went into a brown jug. So that was where they all from. He was known as a wit and a beer drinker at times.
So it was a vessel for beer,
Yep.
warning you not to drink beer.
Yep, but that was quickly lost and it became basically any type of character was used. Famous people, not so famous, characters from history.
When you first walk into the Toby Jug Museum there in Evanston, your first thought will probably be, is this all there is? Then you turn a corner and you get a big surprise. Thousands and thousands of these strange things called Toby Jugs.
In fact, it's the largest collection in the world, put together by Kevin's friend Steve, who had collected them most of his life. He owned at least one of every jug ever produced and several copies of most of the more popular pieces.
Kevin had started collecting when he was a youngster too, and he and Steve struck up a friendship over their passion for Tobys.
I had an uncle who was interested in antiques and he took me to antique fairs and I bought my first collection of 60 Toby Jugs. And
60?
I had no idea what they were and they were about £3-4 each. I took them out at a show, priced them all at double, and they all sold like mad. I thought, oh great, I'm a real wheeler dealer. Then I walked around the rest of the show and saw them 5 times, 6 times my price, so I had to start doing some research then.
The Toby Jug Museum in Evanston, Illinois was so overwhelming that we asked Kevin if he could just give us the quick tour of the place.
It's honestly quite overwhelming.
How soon after they started making them did they become collectibles?
First known collection was sold in 1812 by a lord, someone who's started collecting them. Yeah, so they've been quite well established in the collectible field.
So well over 200 years
Oh,
ago,
yeah.
people started collecting Toby Jugs.
And talk about royalty, there's all the British royalty here.
Queen Elizabeth,
Yeah.
Town Crier, King Richard III, King Henry VIII.
Yep, it goes on and on. And now I've got several things in here that aren't really speaking Toby Jugs. They're part of what Steve collected, and he wrote books on them. And as long as they have a spout and a handle, he classified them as Toby Jugs. But they're not normally viewed as Toby Jugs, but these are. Then all of these are my own company's Toby Jugs. We published a book on Toby Jugs. The book sold for about £8 and we sold about 2,000 copies, which is quite good going. But the Toby Jug was £200 and we sold 1,000 of them. So we immediately moved into different Toby Jugs. But here you can see there's some of the ones we made. General Schwarzkopf got banned, didn't want it associated with it. President Gorbachev was an actual piece of the Berlin Wall. We've done lots of political characters that sort of the time, like 1990, Helmut Kohl, Boris Yeltsin,
I love Margaret Thatcher.
or Margaret Thatcher's spitting image style.
It really is.
We did these, which are artists and potters. William Moorcroft, David Winter, some of the more popular artists. Charlotte Reed, Susan Cooper, 1930s artists. Clarice Cliff, she's well known as a 30s artist.
Do you consider Toby Jugs art?
No.
So here's a Mick Jagger right here. Does Mick Jagger, for instance, have one of his caricature Toby mugs?
No.
Nobody bothers to send them to these people or anything.
Well, we did for a few of them, but I don't know whether Mick Jagger acknowledges. The Stones did contact us with these and asked what they were, and we told them. They said, "Oh, we would quite like the idea of it."
Are these some of these making a political statement?
Oh yeah, some of them make very much a reflection of our own statement.
They're historic, they're unusual, they have a place in some people's hearts and minds.
And pretty soon, they will all be gone from this place here in Evanston, Illinois.
How long will you continue this collection?
Well, it's not going on very long, I'm afraid. It's going to end in March. It's been 5 years since Steve died. He left enough money to keep going for 5 years, but after that point, there's not, and so we're slowly selling it off. It's a bit of a pity.
So all of this will eventually be sold and the museum
Yeah.
will be closed.
Yep.
How does that feel?
Not very nice.
For Kevin and other Toby Jug fans, this is a bittersweet moment. The collection, put together over decades by Kevin's friend Steve, is slowly being sold off, offered up for sale on eBay and here at the museum. What's not sold will go to a collector who will likely keep what he wants and sell the rest.
The Jugs will probably live on somewhere, but will not necessarily be together in one place. Okay, full disclosure, the Toby Jug Museum is not for everybody. I think you have to have an appreciation for things that are, well, slightly off the wall, more than just different, maybe bordering on strange. They are a little bit cute, a little bit ugly, and most make some kind of political statement, many of those going back to the late 18th century.
Catherine Ripley came to work here a while back as Kevin's assistant and soon developed her own knowledge of and love for the Toby Jugs. She says working here has been almost magical at times, but it's a time in her life she wouldn't trade for anything.
I remember going to the Yeti Museum in Georgia, the Sasquatch museums. This is that same kind of strange oddity. People walk in and they think just the front area is it, and then they turn the corner and there's 10,000 more, and their minds are blown, and they go between, this is really creepy, and this is such an amazing thing. It's a shame that it's not going to be around anymore.
Is it fair to say people that have been to the Toby Jug Museum, once this is gone, no one will ever see this vast of a collection again?
Yeah, unless someone has got the intent and the money.
And again, before you make a trip to see the Toby Jug Museum, keep in mind that the collection is only going to be there, the museum is only going to be there until sometime in March of 25. At that point, it gets split up and goes, well, wherever it goes.
To lots of other collectors, hopefully. You know, we did get a chance to talk with Kevin and Catherine a lot more, so let's listen to more of that conversation.
Winston Churchill's the most popular.
A lot of prime ministers.
Lots of prime ministers.
Kings and queens?
Oh, yes. Yes, kings and queens and everything in between. I mean, there's some, all sorts of characters were introduced as Toby Jugs. These are the ones that were first originated, and you can see there's a certain style to them, which was quickly lost as they moved on. But these were like the first 20 years, and quite often they had dark spots on their face to talk about the dangers of drinking.
That was what drinking was supposed to do to you.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then there were also ones like this one, you see, described as a rather large, rotund woman, but a little bit of erotica. Notice that
Yes.
inside it's the...
A little bit of leg showing.
well, it's breast. You can see breast.
Oh, it is!
Oh my goodness. It
It
is.
was just a little joke at the time.
And she has a peculiar look on her face.
Yes, not attractive.
Do you have any idea how many Toby Jugs there are?
No, we don't know because they're made all over the world, and especially in Europe. Like these are all French. And they put their own specific twist on them, like you tell them by the style.
But they're still called Toby Jugs.
Yeah,
even
they're still
though-
called Toby Jugs, except there's a variety called character jugs, which are head and shoulders.
Do you have any idea how many you have in the museum?
We had about 12,000 when we started.
Who are typical people that collect Toby Jugs? How would you describe them?
Well, they're usually older because it's not that a young collectible. They're people who've got an interest in history. They're affluent because they tend to cost a bit to put a collection together. There are several that are quite well heeled.
What was it that grabbed your attention about the Toby Jugs when you were young?
They were just quite funny and humorous, and that to me it was they were sort of taking the mick out of lots of things, and as well as being historical and relating that way. I did a degree in economics, and so there were lots of things that happened at the time that reflected society. Rod Stewart is meant to have lots of Winston Churchill Toby Jugs.
Oh, they've done every U.S. president.
Steve, the owner, wasn't an elitist. If you go around the corner, you'll see he has Garfield and Popeye. So it didn't have to be from the 1800s for him to collect it. If it held water and you could either drink from it or pour from it, he collected it, and he was smart because these are the ones that are in the museum outside, and people will walk by and see it. So you have Star Trek, and you get the Trekkies that go to Northwestern that want to come into the museum and look around. There was one that we sold, again, a French one, that was the moon. And he was wearing a robe, and he had a stack of books, and it said, I think it said Je sais tout, which means I know everything. And it was an encyclopedia company that had sent that out as...
Like a Christmas gift or something?
Yes, as a gift with purchase kind of thing. If you ordered the encyclopedia, you got this Toby Jug.
Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, I'll show it to you. It's a kneeling slave, and it was done French manufacturers, and it was around the 1770s, and it was done as a thing to show that they were against slavery.
What would you tell someone who was starting a collection of any sort? Because this is a love, and you started buying that set of 60 Toby Jugs and then just doubling the price as opposed to what they really...
Well, I would say any collection, you know it's a collection when you get more than three. One's a purchase, two's a pair, three's a collection, and then it goes on from that.
And then you're hooked.
You would think Toby Jugs, there would be a museum of this stature in the UK.
Here it is in Evanston, Illinois, in the United States.
It's pretty random.
Random indeed, but you can still take advantage of seeing the collection, what they have left, through March of 2025. And if you're interested in Toby Jugs, you may visit them on their website, or you can even check them out on eBay. Thanks again for listening to On the Road with Kelly and Bob. And don't forget, you can download the free Odyssey app and listen anytime, anywhere.